Well, good morning. How are you all today? And welcome to Integrative Preparedness. I want to talk today about what I consider to be the most dangerous time of the year each year, and we're entering into it right now. I'll tell you what brought this up is that this morning I was reading from The Revival, my second book, doing the Audible, which is now available, the first chapter, on our Patreon channel. And as I was reading through it, I realized, I said, there are a lot of people, there have been a lot of channels talking about EMP, CME, the collapse of the grid, for whatever reason, cyber attacks, mechanical attacks, failures, whatever. And occasionally, I don't do them very much, but I thought, this is the right time to do it. I mean, since I wrote a book about it, right? Actually, I didn't write a book. I wrote 6 books about it. 6 books, the Stonemont series. I'll get back to that in a minute. But since I have put years and years and years of thought into this, I thought this is a good time to talk about this. I'll read from the preface of the book, just a short paragraph, which caused me to think, okay, I've got to talk about this today. And in the preface, I explain, I said, on September 1st and 2nd, 1859, a solar coronal mass ejection, or a CME, struck the Earth's magnetosphere, causing a geomagnetic storm witnessed around the globe. Observed and documented by amateur British astronomer Richard Carrington, it was dubbed the Carrington event. If a Carrington-class CME struck Earth today, and we've had some close calls. For those of you who don't know, we are in a very active solar cycle right now, solar cycle 25. And we have been, a number of CMEs have come toward us. None of this class, but stay with me and you're going to see the importance of this. If a Carrington-class CME struck Earth today, it would destroy all electrical grids and electronic components worldwide. Some dispute that, but realize that this is a case of theoretics. And in the world of preparedness, we always want to plan for the worst while hoping for the best. But if you plan for the best, you're going to be out of luck when the worst comes along. So, and I write my books on the basis that everything is gone. That's why I'm able to, go through the book and cover those things that need to be done in order to adequately prepare for it. So I'll continue with this. We would immediately be back in a world without electricity. A nuclear-induced electromagnetic pulse, or an EMP, would have the same effect on its target area. In either case, the EMP Commission, estimates that 90% of those in an affected area would be dead within 1 year from starvation, disease, accidents, and the violence that accompanies societal collapse. And I agree with that. Now, how probable is this? One more figure for you before we get into this. How probable is this? In their 2012 report, the American Geophysical Union projected a 12% chance that a Carrington-class CME would strike the Earth within the next decade. That's 12% each decade. The chance of a nuclear-induced EMP attack from one of our global enemies, we have no way to know. And we all know that that's getting dicier by the minute, isn't it? So that's what made me think about doing this one today. I say that this is the time of year that's probably the most dangerous time of year. We have no control over what the sun does, but as far as attacks from bad actors who don't like us around the world, which is increasing all the time, this is the most dangerous time of year, simply because we're coming into the winter. Okay, the growing season is over for most places. For people who have not stocked up, there's not going to be any more food coming out of the gardens for the most part. And in the wintertime is the most difficult time to maintain heat and to get food. In the case of a grid going down, whether it's the result of a CME or an EMP, most of you know what would happen? Okay, now for newer people, this is important. Everything stops. Think about what the world, your world, the world would be like without electricity. Everything that we rely on is electric or electronic dependent. There's a little bit different there, okay? Back in 1859, when the Carrington event happened, about the only thing was the telegraph, and they had problems with it. Now, the American Geophysical Union has estimated that one of these happens about every 150 years, meaning we're overdue. Think about what would go down. What do you rely on right now that you would not have access to? Okay, all food deliveries stop, right? Whatever gas you have in your vehicle is going to be all the gas you're going to have, because the pumps at the gas stations run on electricity, right? If your vehicle runs. There's also a debate about that. Now, in my books, just to make it easier, I made it so that pretty much no vehicles after about 1978 run. That's simply because they're so full of computers, so full of circuits. And the extent to which microcircuits are susceptible to either an EMP or a CME. And I tell you, if you want the science on this, we have some extremely smart people on our Patreon channel that if you go to the member posts area, they go through all of the science of the different waves, the EMP and CME and all that. I'll be honest, that's beyond me. I wrote books on how to prepare for and how to survive it. I'm not a scientist, and so I don't even really understand everything that they said. But if you want to get that deep, come to us on the Patreon channel, and you'll be able to get that deep, because they go that deep. You won't, all stores will be closed because there won't be an electricity. Like I say, no gas, no heat, no lights, no water, because the water processing plants run on electricity. Essentially, what you have is everything you're going to have. Now, I cover this a lot more detail in my books, and there's no way to go into all the detail on a short little video. You have to use your imagination. You have to use your common sense and say, without electricity, what does life become? Okay. Essentially, we're going back, and you'll hear people say, oh, we're going back to the Stone Age. No, we're not. We're going back to the 1850s, pre-electric time, okay? And I've also heard some what I consider to be very dangerous claims on certain channels and even in news. And that is, man, it's going to take months to replace, the transformers and get the grid back up. It'll take decades. What people don't realize is that right now, we'll talk about the United States. There's 3 grids. And I even hear other channels get this wrong. There are 3 grids: Eastern, Western, and Texas. Okay. Across the entire nation, there are somewhere in the area of 2,000 of the extremely large transformers that the grid relies on. Taking out just one of those is not a big problem. If one goes down now, they can circumvent that and take the energy through things. If several go down, it becomes a problem. Now, if one goes down right now, with everything working perfectly in the world, it takes up to a year for them to replace that transformer. Okay? They're not made in the United States anymore. The last I heard, they were made in Germany and South Korea. That might have changed. I don't know. When everything goes down, where do these people expect these transformers to be built? In some other place with no electricity and no industry? Essentially, we don't have to relearn everything. And I get into the engineering a lot as they rebuild the community of Stonemont in my books. But we don't have to reinvent things, but we have to rebuild things. In other words, we have the knowledge. We don't lose the knowledge. except the knowledge contained in the 90% of the people who will die in the first 12 months. But we learn we lose the capacity to produce. Does that make sense? Okay, so without industry, it's difficult to build industry, right? So we have to rebuild industry, and that means from the ground up. And that means it's going to be years, perhaps decades, before there is again electricity on demand for large areas. Smaller areas will get it back sooner, probably within the first 6 months to a year, because of all sorts of ways they could do it, which I talk about in my books. But this is something to be taken seriously. When I tell people, when people ask me, what should I prepare for? I say prepare for an EMP, CME. Prepare for everything to go down. Simply because if you're prepared for that, you're prepared for just about anything. Okay? And what does that mean to be fully prepared for that? What it means is that you become your own provider. Is that you, as a result of your preparedness, your preparations, are able to live separate, completely separate from any of the external, interrelated systems over which you have little or no control. Okay, so when everything goes down, you are able to produce your own heat, your own light, your own food. And if it happens in the wintertime, you're not going to be out there producing food unless you have indoor growing capabilities. But that's where your food stocks come in. I always suggest to people they have 7 years of food. Others will say 3 months, 6 months, 1 year, whatever. Hey, I take 7 years from the Bible. Why not? You're not going to be sorry if you have too much. If you don't have enough, you're going to be very, very sorry. So we're coming into the most dangerous time of year because of that. We're coming into the wintertime. A lot easier to die in the wintertime of exposure and accidents, things like that, than it is in the summertime, to be real honest. And it's more difficult to get food. Think about what you would need if all the electricity went off and isn't coming on for 10 years. Think about it. Do you have what it would take to survive, to rebuild, to survive long enough until you can become your own food provider? Can you protect yourself? Do you have the implements necessary to protect yourself? Can you heat your house or wherever you live? Do you live in an area that would become too dangerous to stay in? Do you need to move? Do you have a place to move? Do you have a place to go? All of these things are important considerations, and there's no time of year that they're more important than right now. So if you want, and I'll slide in here, our sponsor for this and every one of my videos is the Stonemont series, the complete plan, the complete guide for preparing for, surviving, and rebuilding, which is important, after a complete collapse of everything. Now, what I referred to earlier, and they're available, I should say this. They're available. You can get them on Amazon, the link's down below, or you can get them the best way through our website, stonemont.us. That link is down below. That lets me sign them for you. And there's a place when you order your books, it says, would you like Steve to sign a message in there? And you can tell me what you'd like me to sign. I love to do that because I love my relationship with my readers. So they're available on the Stonemont website, as are the Stonemont cups. I told you I'd tell you how to fix that problem of not having a Stonemont mug, right? And on our Patreon channel, I'm doing the audibles of the books. The complete reversion is already up there on Audible. You go to the Patreon channel, the link is down there. Go to the Stonemont level, and then you'll be able to access the audibles of me reading the entire reversion. And just today I put up the introduction, the front matter they call it, and chapter 1 of the revival. Now on this I've made, and I'm not sure whether I'm going to make it available on YouTube or not. You know, there's a lot of people that just don't know what they're missing out on when they're not with us on Patreon, and I wish you'd be over there because there's so much more over there that you'd get a lot out of. I've made this available so that everybody on the first chapter and the front matter, everybody on Patreon can see it without coming to the Stone Mountain level. Because again, I think we have a lot of people that have kind of trapped themselves on the first level and not realized by coming to the Stone Mountain level they get more. Okay. It'd be the readings of the books and my story of organized crime and the my self-defense series and things like that. You get a lot more there. So that's what we have. Think about that. What is your situation now? If everything went down, because if I were an enemy of the United States and I had the capability, and we don't know who does, well, we have an idea. We know some who do, and others we don't know for sure. Let me put it that way. Okay, and I wanted to shut this country down. I do it this time of year. Whether it's nuclear EMP, whether it's cyber attack, whether it's mechanical attack, whatever it is, I'd shut it down right now as we're going into the winter, because this is where they're going to get their largest and most immediate death toll. So see what you've got, kind of make an inventory. Are you short on some things? Do you need some things? Could you survive the winter if everything shut down this afternoon, this evening, while you're asleep tonight? Could you make it till spring and then beyond? Can you provide for yourself? Can you defend yourself? Can you rebuild afterwards? Those are the questions to ask yourself, and I hope that in your case the answer is yes. If it's not, use those no's to guide you in the direction you need to go with your next steps of preparedness. Remember that we prepare well today in order to live well tomorrow. You're going to live tomorrow however well you have prepared to live. Prepare well, you have a good chance of living well. Don't prepare well, it's not going to be fun. Okay, you all get out there, take a good look, spend a few minutes today thinking about it, writing down, planning out, and I'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.